He doesn't need music. He is music.
I think I knew pretty early on, just from watching my mom sing and listening to music and then starting to sing and perform myself, that I'd kind of found my calling.
What does spirituality and music mean to you?
It sounds kind of funny, but I almost feel like a wizard. I've been blessed with the fan base that has, one, embraced me as their own.
What do you say to those people who feel like you've diluted the form?
Go listen to something else. You know,
Nice. Carnatic or Coachella?
Karnatic at Coachella.
Some reports that there was like water maybe thrown at you.
That's a good question. That's a good question. These are good questions, but also like kind of like, I don't know the answer to that yet. Requiring some real deep thinking.
Yeah. You're like, how dare you put this in the rapid fire?
No.
Yeah. Oh my God, you made me cry. When I think about music, it's not just about the song. It's about the emotion, a forgotten memory from a different time. It's about the meaning of it. Not too many people know, but I sang in my school choir and I sang a cappella. I was also once chosen to be a part of a rock band. I grew up in a home where my mother sang ghazals and she explained the nuances and the deeper meaning of it. Music has been such an inherent part of my life, my travel buddy, my mood lifter, my stress buster, my go-to gym buddy. Even though I don't sing as often as I would like to, music will always be an inherent part of my life. Some voices don't just sing to you, they move you. And my guest today on Flip the Script with Shubra is definitely one of them. What I love about him is how he effortlessly blends worlds, Karnatic to R&B, classical to contemporary, and he does all this without losing its authenticity. He is a celebrated vocal artist, songwriter, producer, and for those closer to home, he is the voice of almost every actor we see on screen. He is the first South Indian artist to perform at Coachella in 2024. It is very rare to find an artist who is so genre-defying, sounds so personal and yet so universally relatable. I am so freaking excited about this conversation, and without further ado, I would like to introduce you to the insanely talented Sid Sriram.
Thank you so much for that intro. That was awesome.
Really?
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I appreciate that.
You know, I should be honest, guys, I was kind of fumbling and he was so nice to say, hey, listen, that happens to me too. So kudos to you for that.
All the time, yeah. But those words did mean a lot to me.
Oh,
so
thank you. Thank you so much, Sid. This means so much to me. And I must tell you, I don't think I've ever seen my team this excited for any guest. And I truly mean this. They were just so stoked about this.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You were born in Chennai, raised in California, trained in Carnatic music and shaped by gospel and soul, right? Like when you close your eyes, where do you feel most at home?
When I close my eyes, I think I feel most at home on stage. That's kind of like always been the place where I feel most myself. But if we're talking about like a physical place, I'd probably say Chennai.
Okay.
It took me a while to be able to come to that realization. But once it hit me, it really hit me. And any time I touched down in Chennai, it feels like there's like this big exhale. And my spirit feels like it really comes alive.
How nice.
Sure. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So your first guru was your mother, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about the little boy who sat beside her learning ragas not for fame, but just something more sacred and spiritual.
Yeah. So we moved to the States in 91. I was a year old.
Okay.
And in 92, my mom started her Karnatic music school there in Fremont. Fremont's where I grew up. It's like 45 minutes outside of San Francisco. And it wasn't even like formal lessons or sitting down to really kind of like specifically learn music. But because she started her school, there's always kids in the house. She was teaching all the time and I was just surrounded by Karnatic music. So my earliest memories are really of just like listening and imbibing the music just by listening and doing other stuff, running around, just being a kid and having this music just kind of like enter my subconscious that way. And I think I knew pretty early on, just from watching my mom sing and listening to music and then starting to sing and perform myself, that I'd kind of found my calling. Obviously, at the age of 3, I couldn't like put that intellectually into place, but I think subconsciously somewhere I knew that I just found the resonance point.
And that's your happy place.
Yeah, exactly. And it felt like this as far back as I can remember, anytime I felt a sense of anxiety or just like, not quite feeling confident or something, or if I wasn't feeling right internally, I could sit down and sing and it could just immediately center me and snap me back into place.
Right. Same. That's what music does to me too.
Yeah.
When I watch you perform on stage, right, there's this certain stillness that I see. Is this something that you've cultivated over the years, or is just like that, like an inherent part of you, who you are?
I think it's an inherent part. Like the first time I performed on stage was when I was 3.
Okay.
And I obviously like don't have like a vivid memory that far back, but there's video of it. And I look back at it and I looked at that video maybe a few months ago. And I'm a pretty, like my mind is always racing. It's been that way as far back as I can remember. But when I watched that video, as soon as like I start singing, there's this stillness that kind of just like spreads across my being. And I recognize that very clearly, like to this day, the same thing kind of happens where, the minute there's like song starts happening and I'm just able to sing, everything else melts away and I just feel super, super centered. So I think I call it like a karmic hangover because I really like believe in past lives and reincarnation. But I feel like it was something that was handed to me. And so I can't necessarily like take responsibility for it, but it's been there from the very beginning.
It's been
for sure.
there. Okay.
Yeah.
So you said you feel like home maybe most at Chennai, right? But you belong to like 2 cultures. Did you feel like you belong to both, or you were like, I don't belong to both?
I think both of those things. I think there's always been this feeling that I resonate with Indian culture strongly, and because of the music school and because I was always surrounded by my heritage by way of Karnatic music, that always was super present in the house. There was always pujas going on. There was always something to remind me of who I was and what the rootedness of where I come from is. And at the same time, I always felt inherently American as well, whether that be like through the music that I was listening to, as I got a little bit older, the way I like to dress, and just like very, very subtle things like the way I talk and just like mannerisms, accent, slang, all those things. It felt like in those ways, that was my American side, and then there was this Indian side. Right. But I always did feel like I would code switch between both. Right. So when I was home, I felt much more Indian. When I was at school or socially out, I feel more American.
Right.
And it was always like these 2 silos within me. And then because they were like 2 separate, disjointed identities, it also felt like I didn't necessarily belong to either one because I was kind of like racing between both. And it took a lot of my life. I think maybe by the time I turned 26, 27, that's when I finally was able to kind of like reconcile with the fact that they weren't 2 different identities within myself, but it's just like one, and there's this whole spectrum of lived experience and all that. So it took a long time. I grew up very confused for sure, but music was always the thing that kind of brought me back to myself. So in almost every other context, whether I was like at a school dance or just like anything, it would be very, I didn't realize it at the time because it was the only thing I knew, but there was this sense of just like uneasiness, not necessarily belonging anywhere properly. And then, you just do the work over the years. And again, because I had music, I was able to use music as my mechanism to further understand myself.
Right.
And as that happened, then I was able to kind of like fully embrace all of who I was.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So actually my next question was what were you like when you were a kid, right? And how did music shape that version of you? So
Sure.
like, were you like shy, rebellious?
I was kind of, I was definitely shy and the kind of person I am even to this day, and I was definitely this way when I was a kid. I loved being amongst people. Okay. I loved having company and just being in social settings, but I was never the person who was going to be like the loudest and the most active. I was more like a passively social person. So I loved being surrounded by family or friends or whatnot and just getting to do my own thing, just like not necessarily engaging in too much conversation. I'm definitely, and I've always been this way, and I was especially this way when I was a kid, but it takes me a while to break out of the shell and kind of like really be extroverted. Otherwise, I'm super to myself, but I really enjoy company.
Okay.
And again, I think it's like a bit of a Western concept of isolation where everyone is kind of like apart. You have to call ahead of time to make an appointment with a friend to hang out, which is not the case here in India at all, which I love about being here. But yeah, so that was kind of what I was like. I was shy, and I always knew that I had this thing within myself, just like a gift or whatever, what have you. And I was always eager to show that to people, you know, so in that way I wasn't shy. And I was very active. Like I said, my brain was always racing, just with like ideas, thoughts, whatever. So it was an interesting childhood for sure, where I was kind of grappling between the fact that I wanted to like really, again, show people that I had this thing, this like it almost felt like a special secret. But I wasn't ever trying to be the most like the loudest person in the room for sure.
Okay, interesting. Okay, nice. So you've like performed in like massive like music festival, grand stages, and also in like temples, right? What does spirituality in music mean to you today?
It's everything. I think sound is such an interesting like energy form in that, you know, we can't see it. It's not tangible. We can obviously hear it, but then it has, I think because it's not seen, it's not tangible, it has this ability to really molecularly change the way people feel in a way that feels like very magical. And so for me, music, sound, specifically Karnatic music, was the portal through which I started to understand spirituality. I started asking more questions and seeking. And I started doing this quite young. I used the phrase karmic hangover before. I think besides just like the gift of music, something else that I've always had kind of within my spirit was this slight sense of like melancholy and existential crisis, and trying to like wrap my head around like, why are we here? What is the purpose? What am I specifically here to do? And all of that. So, you know, and that, I guess I wasn't like actively thinking about that as a 5-year-old, but there was this sense of weight that always kind of like rested on my shoulders. And so with that came a lot of questioning, just trying to understand things. And so that paired with this beautiful music form that was handed to me really kind of set me off on the path of spirituality, and very early on it married my journey with spirituality and music together as just like one journey. And it's been that ever since. And I can't say it's given me a ton by way of answers, but it's just pushed me down the path further and further of just asking more questions and realizing that maybe there's not necessarily much by way of answers or whatnot, but just getting to just dive deeper. And as I've gotten older and as I've refined my craft, I think my relationship with myself, with the divine, has also kind of come a little bit more into clear focus.
Right.
And it's been a beautiful journey, not without its moments of just like, again, existential crisis and questioning and the lows. But I think what I've really come to have faith in is with lows and with the points of not losing faith, but questioning self and questioning the world, comes a quick kind of rise upward, and you start to see light, answers, maybe not answers, but the truth starts to reveal itself to you a little bit more. So that's always kind of been my path. At first it was very unclear and very fuzzy, and as I've gotten older, just the clarity has just sharpened and more over time.
That's beautiful. That's so nice. You said all the things that maybe I can't say it like that, but like music has that effect on me also.
Sure.
Yeah, so nice. Okay. From your debut in film music to you becoming this global artist, right? Which part of your journey still feels very surreal to you?
All of it. Like I grew up in the suburbs in California. Like I said, the city's called Fremont, and it's a very beautiful place. There's like hills around, and the weather's quite nice, and I love Northern California a lot. But growing up in the suburbs, it's also super boring and really dry. There's not much to do. Most of the restaurants we had are like chains, like fast food joints and such. And growing up, we'd play basketball or do like the normal stuff, but there wasn't much by way of like wonder and magic around me. It was a pretty mundane kind of upbringing, and mixed with that was like this identity crisis that we kind of touched on. So I was just kind of like whiling my time away, definitely diving into music and getting obsessed with it and just immersing myself in it. But and I always had this dream of becoming a star, whatever that means, you know. And it always felt like a distant kind of dream. I knew I had this gift. I knew I was talented. I knew anytime I sang, like heads would turn. But I didn't really understand or know or rather I wasn't able to kind of imagine what this could all turn into. And so everything feels surreal. Everything feels like a real gift. There are days where I take it for granted, for sure. I'm like, yeah, this is
Don't
normal.
we all?
Yeah, for sure. But I think there's been so many reminders over, like my professional career started in 2012. So it's been 13 years now. And there's been many reminders over the span of time, just like really magical things, like the way I met A.R. Rahman was through a cold email when I was in college, where like I had a friend who just was interning with them, gave me his email address, and I just shot him an email kind of out of the blue. He responded, and that turned into my first opportunity. And he's someone I idolized since I was a kid. So, like from that point on, there was like these magical moments that have just like been highlights of my life and points of inflection in my career. So I would say like that first thing that happened, that felt really surreal, especially when I met him for the first time, because he just come off of winning the Oscar for Slumdog, being someone who's Tamil, who grew up in the U.S., seeing him be celebrated at the highest level, like that was crazy. And then to get to meet him just like a year after, that was insane. And yeah, just in the same way. I mean, like most recently, the Coachella experience was pretty crazy. Yeah. Again, there too, I kind of told myself I'm not ever going to go to a major festival until I'm performing on stage. Okay. And I got to really make good on that, which was great. And then there's been some very like small, simple things, like singing at a temple around, I want to say like maybe 2012, 2013, no, even before that, 2011, and like a really old man just coming to me and just delivering a really heartfelt, almost like prophetic message of what was going to come. And there's just like been these like small things too, not just like the major life events, but really small, minute things, very simple things, or things I could easily have overlooked. Those have also been just surreal reminders that I'm blessed to be on the path that I'm on.
Right. You're doing something right in life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I know. So what's your preparation like before you get on your tour or a concert like?
So I try to keep the practice routine and regimen pretty consistent throughout the year. Okay. So no matter whether I'm going to be going on the road for a while, or if I just have one concert, or if I have a break from performing, I try to keep the same practice routine going. So I wake up and I box in the morning. Then I practice for about like 45 minutes, just voice exercises. And then later on in the day, I'll sing for about hour and a half to 2 hours. And as long as I'm not traveling, that stays pretty consistent. And as long as I do that pretty consistently, then no matter what the context is, if I have to go do a show, and my shows are for the most part like around 3 hours long. Karnatic concerts are also 3 hours long. If I've been disciplined with my practice, then I'm good. Okay. So I just try to keep that up. It's also very like gratifying just to practice for the sake of it, and not in prep of something or not in anticipation of something, but just the act of sitting down and singing. If I don't do that for like a couple of days, I start to feel really weird and just like not completely balanced and such. So that's what goes into it. And then obviously there's like the whole process of conceptualizing the show, creating the arc. My favorite thing about doing shows is getting to take the listener, the viewer, the fan on a journey with me. And I feel like, it sounds kind of funny, but I almost feel like a wizard that's like holding someone's hand and taking them on this like magical thing.
That's
you know
so
what I mean?
Cool. I love the analogy. Yeah,
it's fun. And so in that way, I like to really kind of very intentionally create the arc of the shows, thinking about the energy, when there's a lot of tension, when there's a release, when there's more intimate moments, when me and my band can just like rock out crazy, so really kind of thinking about that, imagining that, and then it just comes time to execute. So that's generally kind of what goes into it.
Nice. You said boxing. Does it help?
It helps in a couple ways. I started boxing like 2.5 years ago, and really why I started doing it was, I've talked about this a couple of times already, but with my mind racing the way it did or does, I really needed some sort of physical activity to like focus myself. And singing helps in a way for sure, and it's one great kind of process, but I needed something that was much more physical so I could put myself through the rigor, and I could also just like have a new avenue of figuring out how to focus my brain and quiet it a little bit. So boxing has been amazing in that way. And I train with my coach in Chennai. And it's been great. It's been nice. It's nice to hit stuff sometimes.
Yeah, beat the shit out of something, right? Yeah, yeah.
Every so often, it's just good to like take a couple swings or not a bunch of swings at the bag.
Yeah.
And it's been good. It's also nice to like, I think, bring together the physical aspect and the mental and the spiritual and the musical, like being able to be tapped into all aspects of myself in this way and understanding how my body works, understanding how my mind works, and everything that comes from that has been really good. It really kind of like completely changed my life actually in the last couple of years.
Wow, that sounds like a very holistic approach to this. Very nice.
This is me on my best days though.
Yeah, okay,
you know what I mean? Like I can't sit here and be like I'm always on it because I'm definitely not.
None of us are. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But when I get into like the rhythm of things, this feels amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
So just before getting onto stage, right? Is there like a silly ritual or a sacred ritual that you do?
So there's this prayer called Kandasashti Kavacham. It's in Tamil and it's on Lord Muruga. So I'll read that every time before I get on stage, no matter what kind of show it is.
Nice.
There's a specific song that I listen to, which I won't share because it's a secret.
Okay, obviously.
and then, but there's one specific song I listen to every time before I go on stage. And then I just chill. You know, I try to just like quiet my mind. If it's one of my shows, like on the film side or like the contemporary context, me and my band just joke around before going on stage, make sure that it's not like too heavy of an energy, because we know that once we go on stage is both a musical, mental, and physical, like real exercise. We're there for 3 hours straight, just going for it. So we just try to joke around, and I'm blessed to have a band of guys who know how to take music super seriously, but don't take themselves too seriously.
You need that.
You know, and it's been a good reminder for me because maybe you've already gathered through the little bit that we've talked, but like there's a lot that goes on in my head that feels quite serious. And I also feel like through social media, most of my fans probably think I'm always like in a room brooding about my emotions and writing music, but it's not the case. And they're good reminders of like, you know, not everything is that serious. Right. Like I said, we're very serious about our prep, about the music that we give to people, but we also have a lot of fun. So just hanging with them a little bit, and we huddle around, do a quick prayer, and then we head to stage.
Okay, lovely. Yeah. Okay, how do you protect your creativity when like the world expects you to be like? I find it difficult sometimes, the social media game and all of that. You know, you constantly have to be on. Sure. How do you protect your creativity when it comes to this?
That's a good question. It's like a daily battle, I think, because like you said, with social media and the pervasiveness of it, it's so easy to get caught up into the mindset of being in a rat race or like numbers and engagement and all this stuff. And I get caught in that too. I think my kind of like two ways to deal with that. One is just to limit my phone time. And just like on my best days, I download Instagram in the morning. If I have to post something, I post it. Then I delete it and download it again in the night just to do a quick check-in and delete it before I can doom scroll. That helps a ton because I'm not getting lost in the vortex. I do that, and I just try to like create something every day. I feel like I'm at my most kind of like curious, innovative, creative self when I'm just either on my laptop or at a piano or with my notebook, just making something. It could just even just be a sketch. It could be a little idea, a fragment of an idea, a fragment of a melody, something just to keep my mind sharp and to keep like the inner child like well fed and just super alive. As long as I do that, I realized that I don't kind of like fall into like the feedback loops of cynicism and such. Because that's the worst thing for creativity is once the cynicism starts to get in and once you get jaded, you look at the whole world with a sense of like bitterness. Yeah. And that's a horrible way to live. Yeah. And I was telling myself actually this morning, another thing that I do, which is just like, instead of just like thinking thoughts, trying to externalize it either by writing or just speaking it, even if I'm alone in a room, just like saying things out loud so it gets externalized. For example, like what I was telling myself and talking about earlier today is the fact that joy and happiness is actually not this like super complicated thing. It's really, really very simple. And sure, it is sometimes difficult to stay happy or be happy. But when I just said it out loud, it immediately flipped my whole mindset. So I try to do that and just be easy on myself too. You know, I think like as human beings, we're all works in progress. We're all just figuring shit out every day, you know, and reminding myself of that. But it gets hard for sure. I mean, the phone and social media is the biggest kind of challenge to this whole kind of thing. But it's also a beautiful tool. You know what I mean? So just understanding all of that and then giving myself grace.
Okay. That's exactly what I feel though.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
You know, like, cause it's so easy to put it into words.
Yeah.
Or not, rather, it's not easy to put it into words, but it's hard to put it into action, like daily action.
To practice that, right?
And it takes discipline.
Yeah,
I think so. Like, that's another thing I try to keep in mind is just to stay disciplined and hold myself accountable. Because what comes from that is actually a deep sense of joy.
True.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you stay connected to like your roots and practice and peace when you're on tour?
I don't know the answer to that yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know. Because like when I'm on the road, it's just like a morphed lifestyle. It's a whole other thing.
Right.
Because to be honest, I've only been on like 2 long tours where it's been like a month.
Right.
And that was the biggest challenge of my life. Just like traveling every day. We were in a bus, a nice bus, but still a bus. You're around the same people, and I love these guys, but still, you know, like sometimes you need your space. And the first thing that gets compromised when on the road is definitely routine, whether that is spiritual routine or exercise or whatever, you know, what have you. So I don't think I have the answer to that just yet. I'm going on tour later this year.
I know.
And hopefully by November I figure it out.
I'm going to ask you that time.
Yeah, for sure. I hope I have like a true answer for you then. But again, I think I try to do simple things. Like I try to read a little bit every day.
Okay, you do?
I try to, that prayer I talked about before, I try to do that every day. I check off the simple boxes.
Okay.
And then if I can't like get out and go on a run or something, it's fine.
Yeah.
But those are the things. But again, it's a hard balance to strike for sure, because when you're in constant motion, when you're constantly moving, and the physical ground beneath your feet isn't the same every day, and that's shifting every day, it is a challenge.
Right.
I'm figuring it out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, with my next bunch of questions, I'm going to be a little invasive. It might feel like I'm prying. If
Go
you
for
feel
it.
like I'm crossing the line, please go ahead and tell me.
sure.
Okay, so, you know, a lot of people have praised you for your emotions, right? But they've also criticized you maybe for like your pronunciation in
Yep.
Kannada, Telugu. Do these comments like hurt you or just humble you?
You know, I've gotten really, like, my radar has gotten super strong at being able to detect whether someone is saying something from a space of constructive criticism and love versus whether they're just hating. You know, you can always tell by the tone, and even if it's just via text.
True.
And you can also tell, like, I think because I've kind of like risen up the ranks pretty quickly in various spaces, there's a lot of people who kind of gun for me. And I'm okay with that because it comes with the territory.
Right.
But that forced me to really kind of like sharpen my ability to be able to discern where someone is coming from, because you do want to constantly grow. You know, like I'm definitely like the way I define success is just constant evolution and nothing else. That's like really my only metric. So I do want to constantly get better. I do want to keep really doing justice to like where I'm at, you know, and the kind of like blessing that I've been given. But I've realized the ones that really care about what I do and provide feedback from a place of love, they're also the fans that have really grown with me over the years. For example, in Telugu, it's like not my second, it's like my third language, I would say. My mother tongue is Tamil, but I think in English, having grown up in the US. And my first like pure Telugu song in films was Adiga Adiga, which was I think I want to say like around 2017 maybe. And I'm sure that song, there's like this kind of like anglicized kind of way I've said certain words. And since it's not a language that or at least at the time I wasn't super familiar with, it took me a second to really understand the subtleties of the pronunciations and the words. But I've been blessed with the fan base that has embraced me as their own and really kind of like allowed me to grow. And that's the most I can ask from people who support me and the people who are around me, is, the space to grow and the grace to know that I'm dedicated to this. I care deeply about it. Nothing happens because of oversight. Rather, it happens because of just learning, you
Right.
know? And then you can always tell when someone's just saying some shit just because they want to,
person, yeah.
And so like I try to stay away from the anonymity of the internet as well. If someone's going to give me feedback, I want it to be someone whose voice I can hear, whose eyes I can see, have a real conversation about something so that I can take that and hold on to it.
Yeah.
It's just a comment on Instagram or Facebook or what have you. People can be really frivolous with that. So I'm careful about that. It doesn't hurt me anymore.
Okay.
Life is far too good to get fazed by
Yeah, obviously,
by comments online. So like when it feels like it's coming from the right place, I definitely take it into consideration. I kind of like go back and look at the work that I've done and see here's where I can improve. Here's where maybe I did fall short. Giving myself to grow. I think like I always viewed music as a lifelong journey. So I don't expect to ever be perfect, so I'm down to get better every day. And I think I have. That's the most I can do.
Nice. I also asked this question because I've done 2 Kannada films here, and I get a lot of flack for my Kannada. They feel like even though I'm from the South, but I didn't live here so much.
Sure.
So they're like, it's so anglicized, and they're always bullying me. I'm like, hey, give it to me. I'm at least trying, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, but that's like great advice. You're like, I understand where the intentions are coming from.
Yep.
To make that bifurcation actually helps. Like, okay, do they really want good for you, or are they just like being just bullies,
saying
right?
just to say, yeah, exactly. And I think also like another thing I kind of do look for is like the frequency of a specific comment.
Right.
If I get the same thing like let's say 20 times, I'm like, all right, I should probably just
Yeah.
look behind this and see if there's something for me to do.
Right.
But yeah, I think at the end of the day, what I've kind of like tried to instill within myself is just the sense of security that people are always going to have something to say. You can't make everyone happy ever.
True.
And I like just try to keep getting my feet pretty firmly planted. So no matter what comes my way, I have the ability to take it in, filter out the stuff I don't need, and just keep pushing forward.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Some traditionalists say that you've gone too far blending Karnatic with like R&B, soul, and even electronic, right?
Yeah.
What do you say to those people who feel like you've diluted the form?
Go listen to something else.
Nice.
I like for me, and the thing is like when I sing a traditional Carnatic concert, it is I'm not diluting a thing from start to finish. It's very, very, very Carnatic. Everything from the aesthetic, from the style of music, that the way I present the concerts, the repertoire, everything. So like, but then when I'm experimenting in a space of experimenting, and I know very clearly which context I think it's appropriate for me to do that, I'm going to go all the way with it, because the whole purpose of those situations and contexts is to be able to blur lines. And there's also very few people that exist that have the ability to do it effortlessly. And I've made my whole life kind of like one of the core kind of cornerstones to what I do, and has been for now about 16 years or more, has been the idea of taking these 2 very different forms or multiple different forms and figuring out how they can be in conversation with each other. So yeah, to like the hyper traditionalists, I would just encourage them to not listen, because clearly it's not for them. But I would also encourage some of those folks to maybe like let go
Be a little
of
flexible.
the constraints that they placed on their own mind, and just see what it does to you when you listen to something without throwing a preconceived expectation on it. But again, the experimentation, I definitely leave for the moments and the shows and the experiences where that is called for. And my only kind of anchor points in those contexts is to make sure I'm not just scraping off the top of whatever forms of music I'm bringing together. I've been a stickler for making sure I dig deep into the roots of, obviously I come from Carnatic music, so that's inherent to my process. But even R&B and soul, like I grew up with that from when I was about 7 or 8, and I'm self-taught, but those forms of music have been forms that I've been immersed in as well. So really understanding where that music comes from, understanding it at the roots, at the core. Electronic music, same thing. Like I started producing and making beats and instrumental music when I was in college. So in 2008, 9, right around then. So it's been a long time that I've lived with all these different things. So the experimentation doesn't come from like an idea that this would be just like, oh, this could be cool, right? Or it's not like a gimmick. Rather, it's a very heartfelt, serious exploration that I go through just to see how these different things can speak with each other, how they can coexist, how they can intermingle, and what happens. And what's been really fire is that these experiments, it took a while, but in the last like 4 or 5 years, I found that these experiments, or the hypothesis that I had, has really been proven to be right, where if it's done the right way, if you're doing justice to the different forms that you're trying to bring together, you can create something that truly feels like completely unique.
Yeah, magical.
Know? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay. So there was this performance you did in Hyderabad, and I read somewhere, some reports that there was like water maybe thrown at you. I don't know how far that's
alcohol.
true. Even worse, man.
Yeah,
okay,
horrible.
Yeah. Terrible thing. What happened that night, and how did your relationship with live audiences change or affect you after an audience like that?
So the only way that it affected me is I told myself I'm not going to perform at clubs anymore. I realized in that moment that I'd gotten too big to be in those contexts, and it was a good learning experience because before then we'd done a couple of club shows, and they were always kind of fun. But I also realized that my music and like heavy alcohol consumption don't really mix with each other. And that's no judgment on those spaces or like, you know, but I think for what I do specifically, it was a teachable moment to understand that that's not the right space for me. In the moment, it was infuriating, obviously. And it was, what was even worse, it was like kids that did it, like youngsters who were, anyways. So that was, in the moment it was really, really frustrating, but I took away from that a great lesson, and we've implemented it ever since. And it's been good because I think it forced me to relook at like what is the core spirit of what I do, what's the ethos, and what is the most optimal space to be able to present that to people. And what really sucked about that was that moment ruined the experience for everyone else who was there just to listen to music, really. And it just, from like in a split second, the whole kind of energy went from one that was super positive into an energy of real hostility. And that's never fun, especially when like the music is coming from a real well-intentioned place. I'm glad that it happened, actually, because from that point on, completely shifted my approach, and we're here now.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for sharing that.
For sure.
Yeah, okay. So most of your songs have become like the official soundtrack for people's like Heartbreak, right? When there's something so like raw and lived in about it. And when you're singing, you're not just performing, I feel like you're remembering. Has there been like a personal heartbreak that has like seeped into your performance?
I think part of that like sense of heartbreak and longing and yearning again just comes from the thing I spoke about before that was just kind of like handed down to me of like that sense of like melancholy. And it's been there since I was a kid, where even in Karnatic music, right? There's not music necessarily about heartbreak, but there's these pieces that expound on the composer's like longing for a certain God to come show themselves and be present, you know? And those were always the kinds of songs that I felt most drawn to when I was learning them as a kid. And then, you know, you look at non-spiritual music, if you may, or religious music, and you replace the yearning for God with the yearning for someone's love. At its core, it's a very similar emotion. It's just as deep. Obviously, it manifests in a slightly different way, but in terms of how one, like when you get your heart broken, it is the most profound kind of sensation, at least in that moment. And yeah, sure, I've gotten my heart broken a couple of times, you know, but when I'm performing, it's never like, I've tried to do this thing which is somewhat masochistic, where like when I'm performing, like remember the specific memory and channel that.
Yeah.
And what I realized when I try to do that, it never translates.
Right. It's
Ever.
not organic anymore.
It seems like I'm like trying to
Forced.
toil
Yeah,
and pull
yeah,
this thing. And that's what takes the energy instead of just being present.
Right.
But rather when I'm singing a song that is inherently about heartbreak or longing or yearning, and I'm just, well, this is true with any emotion actually, but if I just have my mind completely shut off and I'm hyper present in the moment, then I guess like God does the rest of the work where the emotions get pulled out of you.
Right.
They're there.
Yeah.
You know, we all have it though. I don't know one person, like once you're past a certain age, I do not know one person who has not felt some kind of heartbreak. That could be romantic, that could be familial, that could be a friend, whatever. But everyone has gone through hardship. And so we all have the bank, an infinite well of information, of lived experience, of emotions of memories to draw from. So yeah, my kind of thing is when I'm singing, I'm trying to get lost in the moment to the best of my ability and just forget who I am completely.
Right.
You know, just so I empty myself completely and just empty my brain and just stay present and hope that the thing will happen. And it happens most of the time.
Nice.
Yeah.
What I say is take my broken heart and make it art, right? Like it's
Yeah.
what, yeah.
For sure.
It works.
I feel like that's what's so beautiful about being in a creative space is the fact that we get to do that. You know, because I know that if I didn't have this, I don't know how I would cope with certain things. But the fact that we have like creative portals to get to express through is a real blessing.
What a
sure.
gift, right? Yeah,
Yes.
I know. What's the biggest misconception that people have about you, and what's the truth?
I'm not sure. I think the biggest misconception is probably that I'm like super serious all the time. I think, and I've tried to kind of like pull back the curtain a little bit, just like on Instagram, post a couple memes every so often.
Yeah, I've
just
seen
like,
that. Yeah.
You know, just like let people know, like I'm joking around a lot of the time too,
Yeah,
most of the time actually. I think that's probably the biggest misconception, and that's completely. I owe that to myself because like a lot of times I'm like have these journal entries that I'm posting or like everything's just a little moody, you know. So I would say that. I don't know what else. I try, or I've learned not to kind of try to think about how I'm being perceived. It's taken a lot of time. I realize a lot of my identity crisis or like the need for validation of any sort was always kind of sourced in this like hyper fixation on how do I appear in this moment. And I've done a lot of work to not think about that shit anymore. Because like I don't really, honestly, I don't care. I know who I am, and I know that I'm responsible for my actions, my words, the energy I put out into the world, and then people take away from it what they do. But this also might be too serious of an answer to a question that might not
No,
have been like super,
I love it. Yeah.
But it's right in line with the fact
Yeah.
that I appear to be like super serious all the
Serious.
time. I think that would be the biggest misconception.
Right,
And if
right.
people came and kicked it with me a little bit, my friends, they'd know that it's not the case.
Yeah, like that's what I feel about you right now.
Great,
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
I'm glad.
So you're going on this multi-city tour, right? It's going to take you all across India. So when you picture those nights, what does the energy feel like for you?
It just feels like huge rushes of adrenaline. I love being on stage. I obviously you can't live on stage because that would be a very unhealthy life. But I really live for it. And that like the moments right before you get on this, I still get crazy butterflies and nerves. Where almost you're like, damn, why do I even do this? Because it gets that you really feel a lot. But then the moment, I normally start my shows with the prayer, and it's just my voice alone, nothing else. And the moment the first note comes out of me, and you hear the crowd, I can't really, I don't even know if there's anything that feels that way. So it's just gonna feel, and I think another big thing about our shows is there's no attempt to try to be cool, you know, like just like I saw this something online, but just embracing the cringe, you know what I mean?
I like that.
Yeah, it's great. It's like I've always been that way on stage. The minute I step foot on stage, it's like the primal part of me just comes out, and I'm not thinking about any inhibitions at all. I'm just like purely myself without any apology, and that's what I envision when I think about this tour, is just getting to get on stage and be my full self without apology, exchanging just incredible energy and joy with my bandmates who are my brothers, and amplifying that energy outward into the audience and getting it back from them. And in the most magical nights, that energy exchange just becomes like this continuum where the whole space starts to feel like it's buzzing and everyone feels like they're just like levitating right above ground. And that's what I'm most excited for, because like I said, it's the closest thing I've seen to the proof of magic that exists in the real world. It's like a collective experience that is grounded in love, in sincerity, and just real joy, you know. So I can't wait. Obviously the come down after you get off stage is a little bit hard to deal with, because it's literally like a plane landing after being in the air, and that has taken some time and development of like some tools to be able to brace oneself for the landing. But even that, you know, I have good people around me that I really trust that have helped that become more and more seamless over the years.
Nice. Do you have like a creative vision for this tour?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, musically, the way I kind of approach these sets is, well, I already talked about like the holding the hand, but we really break our shows into 4 sections. Each section has not a very clear emotional kind of focus, but like the first section feels like daybreak, like dawn, you know, and the visuals kind of mimic the same thing. The second one feels like we're launched off into outer space again. And the visuals are far more abstract than they are literal, but they kind of trace this idea of starting watching the sunrise, catapulting out into space, landing back down amongst what feels like trees and land, something that feels very grounding. Then there's a section where everything goes really quiet. We just all gather in the center of the stage and do like a very intimate 4 to 5 songs. And then the last section is just like a party where it's like all like the biggest hits, it's real high energy. We're jumping around the most. So yeah, I think there's like this definite emotional and sonic arc to the whole thing. And I think something I've been very clear about when me and my creative team are putting together the whole production is to make sure we don't add too many frills to it. I think in a certain way, we're still very old school in the way we approach these shows. Like I love videos of Woodstock and watching Jimi Hendrix play like back in the 60s and such. You know, and it's just about the music and it doesn't need too much else to draw people in. So that's something that we still kind of keep at the core of what we do. I also have just new songs that I've been working on that are originals in both Indian languages and in English that we're going to start kind of like debuting through these shows that I'm really excited about. But yeah, I think that the creative vision is building an emotional and musical arc that really feels like a journey so that we can all go on the journey together.
Nice. Okay, that's so cool. Waiting to listen to all that. The new songs you said, right? Yeah, that's so cool. You've like performed in so many different places. You've had different audiences. How does the Indian audience feel unique or different to you?
Well, I think the first thing is that the Indian audience feels like home. Every time I'm here in India to perform, no matter which city it is, and I think that's purely by way of the fact that they, like my fans here, have just embraced me as their own, which I am. You know, so I think that is like the biggest difference, where there's like a beautiful familiarity and warmth that is just established from word go. 2, I believe that India is inherently a deeply musical country. So there's always this sense of relating deeply on a musical level. There's a musical intelligence that's intrinsic to the place, and that I really appreciate, because you don't find that everywhere in the world. So I think that's something I used to kind of take for granted, because when I first started doing bigger shows, it was only in India, and then I started touring more, and you kind of realize subtle differences from place to place. So that's another big one. And then I think the third thing is, you know, acknowledging and understanding that India is a very, very, very diverse country, with each region of the country having its own culture, and within that culture, subcultures, so on. So it's really fun to play with that. You know, like when we're in Chennai, we're going to be presenting the songs a certain way. The repertoire will be one thing. When we're here in Bengaluru, it's going to be slightly different, specifically tailor-made for the fans here. And then Hyderabad, same thing. Another thing I'm really excited about is I've never done like a big show here in Bangalore, and I know that there's always been a real demand for it, and I know the fans have been waiting, so I'm excited that we're finally doing it.
We are excited, right,
Yeah.
guys? Yeah. Okay, Sid, I'm going to change the vibe a little bit. We have like this rapid fire question
go.
for you, so
I'm
let's do
ready.
it. Do you want to have some Jeera water? Yeah, I hope it's like still hot. Is it hot? You want me to not?
No, this is good. This
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay, cool. One song you wish was only yours, no film, no hero.
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say Aiyappa, my first song.
Okay.
Yeah, that one, like, can I talk about it just a
Yeah,
little
of course.
bit? I know it's rapid
No,
fire,
no, no,
but I
please.
tend to, like,
We
expound
have all the time for you.
That one, so I sent my email to AR Sir with some of my music, the original music I was working on when I was in college, and he was very taken by the fact that I could do the R&B stuff and do and sound super authentic doing that, and then do the Karnatic stuff and sound super authentic doing that. So when it came time to record Adiye, it almost felt like that song was like tailor-made for me, because it's this coming together of Tamil fisherman folk language and like R&B, soul, gospel, genre-wise. And because it felt like it was tailor-made for me, I feel like I could definitely be like, nah, this one's mine.
No, okay, nice. Okay. One song you wish was, a lyric you sung that made no sense to you.
Ooh. I don't know if there's anything that I don't know.
Okay, no.
I can't answer that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carnatic or Coachella?
Karnatic at Coachella.
Okay, nice.
Yeah,
One singer you'd love to collaborate with, living or gone?
The singer I'd like to collaborate with who's gone is Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. I think that could have been so much
Oh,
fun.
yeah. You and, oh, wow.
Yeah, I
that
think
would have
we
been
would have
something
a lot of
else.
fun.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, the most overrated trend in playback singing.
Just having to adhere to trends at all.
Yeah.
I think that's like the thing that I dislike. I understand, like, I guess, like the existence of it, but that thing, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I understand what you're saying. Tamil industry or Telugu? Who's your loudest fan base?
Both.
Both? Okay. Have you ever cried while recording a song?
I don't think so. I think the way that it works for me is like when I'm actually in the process of recording, I am like so not here. You know, like I said, I empty everything and I'm just trying to be just like a vessel. So the tears normally come after. And so here's the thing. When I'm recording a song or I'm making music, it's like my rule for myself is zero judgment of any kind. So no reaction as such, just be so lost in the process that you lose yourself. And I'm sure like I've been close to move to tears, but what's happened for sure is after, when I listen back to what's happened, and it's like almost like you come back to life after having recording the song. When I listen back, there have been moments where I've cried for sure. But in the process of actually recording, I do not think so. I have to think, and if something else comes up, I'll send you a message
Okay,
so
cool.
I can edit my answer. I've definitely cried while being on stage, though.
Okay.
Like during shows, that's happened a couple of times.
Okay. Your guilty pleasure song that you secretly love?
That's a good question as well. Oh, I don't know if this is guilty pleasure because the song is amazing, but Drops of Jupiter by Rain. I
Lovely.
love
I
that
love
song.
that song, too.
And I know that some people kind of hate on it now, but forever a classic. in
Yeah,
my
what a
opinion.
song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. A personal truth you've never sung about but want to?
These are good questions and like rapid fire-esque, but also like kind of like requiring some real deep thinking.
Yeah. You're like, how dare you put this in the rapid fire?
No. A personal truth. Yeah, I think the fearless and unapologetic acceptance of self. I feel like that exists in my life for sure, but I don't think I've ever really sung about it as such. And I'm trying to think if I have, but no, I don't think so. So
Okay.
that's a good challenge to maybe write a song about that.
Maybe,
Yeah,
yeah.
for
Yeah,
sure.
good idea, right? For your
Yeah,
next one.
definitely.
Okay, cool. I think
Definitely.
it's going to be really unfair if I let you go. Unfair to us, the team, and the world
Yeah.
if you're not going to sing. But
Sure.
before you do that, right?
Yeah.
I want to read out something that I read that Allu Arjun had written about you, which I had goosebumps reading, which was, I wanted to write this at leisure. My brother Sid Sriram Garu was singing Srivali on stage at the pre-release event. He started singing without music, and I was waiting for the musical instruments to start slowly supporting his vocals. But they didn't, and he kept singing without any music. I was blown away. It was sounding so magical. I thought in my head, he doesn't need music. He is music. I mean, wow. Like, even when I'm saying it, I have those goosebumps. It's amazing. I agree with him. From the man himself, when you think about Alu Arjun, what is a song that comes to your mind?
I mean, Srivalli, for
Please
sure.
sing it for us.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, listening back to that was pretty crazy. But I remember that day when that happened. That was awesome. Okay. నిన్ను చూస్తూ ఉంటే కన్ను రెండు తిప్పేస్తావే నీ చూపులపైనే రెప్పలు వేసి కప్పేస్తావే కనిపించని దేవుణ్ణే కన్నార్పక చూస్తావే కన్నుల ఎదుటే నేనుంటే కాదంటున్నావే చూపే బంగారమాయనే శ్రీవల్లి మాటే మాణిక్యమాయనే చూపే బంగారమాయనే శ్రీవల్లి నవ్వే నవరత్నమాయనే.
Oh my God, you made me cry.
Oh, thank you.
Wow, that was so good.
Appreciate it. Thank
That
you.
was so good. Like, oh, wow. Okay, there was supposed to be a whole round of, when you think of Ranbir Kapoor, when you think of A.R. Rahman, what's the song that comes to your mind?
I think.
He made me emotional.
நிலா காய்கிறது நேரம் தேகின்றது யாரும் ரசிக்கவில்லையே இந்த கண்கள் மட்டும் உன்னை காணும். But that's definitely the one. Yeah.
That was amazing. You made me cry.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
No, that was so beautiful. Happy tears. But this is why I do what I do, right? Like, Flip the Script started because I wanted to get people who flip the script, who like smash the stereotype.
Sure.
And thank you for doing this. You like moved me on a cellular level, and I'm sure that's what the rest of the team feels.
Thank you.
Thank you for this. You are magical. You are the star that you are because of what you do. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the space for just honest conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Yay, guys. That was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.